All right, welcome to this very special part 2 of Social Distillation. I just got done talking about Wheel of Time, but we
Yeah,
usually don't
normally we
do.
finish after that because it's Friday and we want to get to our weekend. But
Yep, but I ran into something that made me go, huh? And I only heard about this. I don't even know who I was listening to. It wasn't one of the people I regularly listen to, and so somebody mentioned this, but they mentioned it in passing. I was like, no, you can't just this is the you can't just move on. I need more details here. So I went looking myself, and so this is going to be quick because I don't have a lot of answers here because finding details has been difficult. Um, I keep meaning to stop using DuckDuckGo because it used to be good, and now you've said it's no good anymore. And
hmm
it's I my search returns keep returning the same narrative at page after page after page. Every link is the same narrative. Okay, so this has nothing to do with the funny business that's been going on in Disney that everyone else is talking about. This is this is potentially people go to jail and your business goes bankrupt shenanigans. All right. So let me share this Bloomberg article here.
you
Okay.
should be able to share. Yeah.
All right. Now, uh, this was written by an attorney in Florida. It says down at the bottom that he um, specializes in concentrating on local and government related matters. So I have no idea what his biases are, uh, but there's some interesting things that he points out here in about the as he headlines it, the contractual impossibility of unwinding Disney's Reedy Creek. So for anyone who hasn't been paying attention, the Reedy Creek Improvement Zone is the special extra super quasi governmental organization that was granted to Disney uh, for building their parks. And this was part of when they started to get super political, and DeSantis and the Republicans said, all right, we're going to pull this away, which they get a ton of tax uh, benefits from this because they basically control their own local taxation. But the bigger reason for it really is because it means they don't have to follow normal municipal, county, state uh, building regulations, which really was the main reason for it. Because I mean, for crying out loud, just look at Epcot Center in its origin and say, how many places could you build something like that and be up to code, right? So you can't build the kind of things Disney was wanting to build under most codes. So that was the main reason for it. Now, uh, the reason there is a big wrinkle here. Well, first of all, um, this caught my eye because we were ranting about property taxes the other day. Reedy Creek's taxing power is exceptional. It can impose property taxes at a rate 3 times higher than the maximum amount for cities and counties. This is in addition to special maintenance and utility taxes. Reedy Creek has not been shy about using these taxes. In the 2022 budget, it sets its property taxes at around 13.57 mils, with each mill representing an annual charge 1/1000th of the property's assessed value. This tax rate is higher than the maximum of 10 mils allowed for cities and counties. Around 1/3 of those taxes are dedicated to one thing, paying debts. Interesting. So, counties, cities, states, and especially the federal government, they run up debt all the time. But states, and especially municipalities, are much more limited in the debt they can issue because, unlike the federal government, they can't just print money out of thin air or just raise the debt ceiling and pretend everything's fine. They actually have to live by the laws of economics and basic math. Well, apparently not Reedy Creek. Reedy Creek, like other special districts, can borrow money by issuing bonds. Anyone who's ever gone to a local election knows what a bond is, because you usually have to have a public vote for it, because it's a special tax above and beyond the normal taxes that are levied for everyday use by the local government. And the other thing about bonds is they are supposed to be, you issue a bond for, this is the best explanation for bonds I've ever heard, which is that it's like taking out a loan for your house. It is a long-term project for long-term benefit. It's also spreading the cost out for the people down the road who are going to use this thing. Because if we spend $10 million upgrading the streets, it's not just the people who live here right now who are going to benefit from that. It's everyone else who moves down the road. So if it takes us 10 years to pay off this street, then we're spreading out the tax burden. So that's why they issue bonds. Okay. And part of the, well, let's just read it here. In authorizing Reedy Creek to issue bonds, the Florida legislature included a remarkable statement included in Reedy Creek's bond offerings regarding its own promise to bondholders. The state of Florida pledges to the holders of any bonds issued under this act that it will not limit or alter the rights of the district to own, acquire, construct, reconstruct, improve, maintain, operate, or furnish the projects, or to levy and collect taxes, assessment, rentals, rates, fees, tolls, fares, and other charges provided for herein, until all such bonds, together with interest thereon, and all costs and expenses in connection with any action or proceeding by, on, or behalf of such holders are fully met and discharged. Okay, so getting into the thing we always rant about the big cats get their backs scratched by the government. Special considerations. Here's where it gets interesting. The bill dissolving Reedy Creek doesn't say what should happen to those debts, but another statute does. By default, the local general purpose government, the county, assumes the district's debt along with all its assets. This means that theoretically, Orange and Osceola counties will inherit upward of $1 billion in bond debt.
Oof. $1 billion.
This is a special improvement district, so it's basically a size of a large city. It encompasses parts of 2 counties, Orange and Osceola. And then it encompasses primarily Disney World, but then there's some also stuff outside the parks and also the other parts of the parks there that are around. If you look at a satellite view of the Reedy Creek Improvement District, I mean, there's some roads, there's a lot of hotels, but a lot of it is parks, like owned by Disney. And then there are some state parks there as well. So what the hell is this city spending $1 billion on? That makes me go, So as this lawyer says, Florida simply cannot promise to prospective bondholders that it won't interfere with Reedy Creek and then dissolve Reedy Creek. If Reedy Creek is ever dissolved, it would be a monumental and complicated enterprise, even on a years-long timeline. The district has a 9-figure annual budget for expenditures. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you're spending 9 figures,
Hundreds of millions.
hundreds of millions annually, and you've got $1 billion in bonds. How the hell are you not able to do your standard governmental services with hundreds of millions of dollars when you're not a large city? It is a pretty rural area. It's, it's what you would expect in a touristy area. You've got roads, you've got shopping centers, you've got hotels. It's not like you got a big industrial park somewhere. What the hell?
Yeah, because these are all revenue generating things. They're not.
That too. You've got a ton of revenue generating things there. So why are you so far in debt?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that doesn't make sense here about this guy, that I pulled this up because it was one of the few that came up that actually laid things out decently. But his conclusion is kind of dumb because Florida isn't dissolving Reedy Creek, it's dissolving the specialness of it. I mean, they're still going to have governmental powers. They're just no longer going to have the specialness. Now, and this is where what this guy whose name I can't remember said that made me go, wait a minute. Oh, before, did this switch screens? This switch
It
tabs?
has, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this is Reedy Creek's government website. So, I mean, this is what they're touting as all the things that, you know, they've done and spent money on. 134 miles of roadways, 67 miles of waterways, 250,000 daily guests. Okay, but again, a lot of those people are spending their money and time in private industry, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
6 to 8 minute response time for fire and EMS, 60,000 tons of waste managed, 30 tons of aluminum, paper, steel cans, cardboard, plastic recycled, water samples, analysis, blah, 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 vendors, suppliers, and contractors, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot, but that's not, I mean, that's not like major metropolis a lot. So again, where did all this money go and why? Here's where the shenanigans come in. Now, technically, Disney is the landowner. Okay, that's where Disney comes into this and why this district is special. But the Reedy District Improvement Zone itself is supposed to be a government like any other municipal government in how it acts. In much of what that lawyer was laying out of, you know, they're supposed to be able to do all this stuff that a normal government would do. Okay. So that they have a board of supervisors that is ostensibly elected, and they're the ones in charge. The accusation is, and just looking at the numbers is what made me go, oh, there might be something to this. The accusation is that Disney was basically laundering money through Reedy Creek. That what they were doing is they were using Reedy Creek to pass government bonds to get money to help them. So if Disney was behind the issuance of government bonds, then the people of Florida aren't on the hook for that. Disney is both financially and legally, because you cannot issue a government bond if it is not for and by a government. Companies can issue bonds. Companies issue bonds as well as stocks.
But they're on the hook for it.
They're on the hook for it. It's controlled by the FEC. There's supposed to be all this, you know, openness to it in the same way that you have earnings reports and all that stuff for your shareholders. So if Disney was monkeying around with the governmental parts, then there's our favorite new word lately is fascism. Government corporate collusion. And that is just not even pretending anymore if Disney was using the Reedy Creek government to do that. And it's hard for me to look at $1 billion in bonds for a fairly rural, you know, county government, most of the land of which is owned by private companies who should be taking care of most of these things themselves. What's the $1 billion doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, setting aside the hundreds of millions of dollars that's in your annual budget, which in and of itself is a little eyebrow raising, but you also have $1 billion in bonds.
When you talk about local taxes, though, hundreds of millions of dollars when it's right smack dab on Disney, which is a massive income. Just sales taxes are going to be a big chunk of that. So it doesn't surprise me that there's so much money available. The surprising part is, like you said, the debt that is
Mhm.
accrued through these bonds over and this is why tourist places need their tourism season, because they make their revenue for these things during that time.
Mhm.
Disney's a year-round
Yes.
money gathering operation. There are very few slow times to go to Disney. And yeah, that's it doesn't surprise me the hundreds of millions. It surprises me that they're so in debt. But if it's money laundering, that's crazy shit. But this is my little bit. You talk about Abbott not doing
Mhm.
enough and being reactionary. This is my beef with DeSantis. He's a lot of surface level posturing. He did the anti-Disney stuff, but this should have been something that his whole team should have been basically in on. It's not in on as making money, in on as far as all the information you just got from a newspaper article.
Yeah. It and I went looking through a number of articles. I had some other articles up, but they're not important because the statements from the DeSantis administration of, okay, what are you going to do about um how are you going to do this? And basically all that's been said is, an assurance that the Florida taxpayer will not be on the hook for these debts. There will not be a bailout, and we're going to come up with a plan. Okay, you should have more details than that,
Mm-hmm.
especially with something that kind of smells hinky. So,
Part of me thinks that this everybody knows that needs to know. They
mhm,
already know. Don't underestimate the importance of the government owning the entertainment industry. If they're doing this thing that was completely illegal, what a nice little thing to hold over their head if you want them to send a certain message out.
mhm. um, so I was sitting here trying to find if I could figure out who it was who said this, but one of the points that this guy made was the suit Disney filed to stop this. Um, I don't think they sued the state. I think they sued DeSantis. And that was his point of, well, because if you sue the state, then the discovery is entirely different and all this stuff's going to come out. Um, but the this is all in the news about, hey, you can't do this because this debt pledge is in. But you know what their main argument has been is that, or sorry, I'm trying to remember how it's bizarre, but basically, um, you you can't dissolve this because uh the power has already been granted. So basically, Disney and Reedy Creek can ever do whatever they want. They're structuring their argument in such a way that if the court upheld it, HOAs could start acting like governments.
They already tried to.
They already tried to,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of weirdness here, and it's hard to dig through because um every story is the team jersey. It's, Disney versus DeSantis, blue versus red, you know, MAGA versus whatever. And it's hard to dig through and actually find the details. Oh, dang it. That's right. That's why I couldn't get into this. Stupid paywall.
Oh. Well, one of the great exciting things about my venture back into academia is now I'll have a student ID to not be behind paywalls for all of these
Oh,
scholarly articles because I can use the the UHCL servers. I might have to go to the school to do it, but I don't mind printing out as much as I want to there because they charge you enough for those student lab fees in your.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was all I had for this little nugget. I was curious if you had any thoughts on it.
No, this is the first
Um,
I've heard of it. I knew there was a lot of stupid shit, but that story flared up and died so fast
yeah.
with
And
the.
that's the other thing that puts my antenna up is, hey, does anyone remember this thing that happened? What happened to that? No one's
Yeah, which
talking about
which
it.
is
Not,
I just logged it as one of those other, just DeSantis did a surface level thing and kind of signaled a little bit and then really didn't have a whole lot
well,
of
oh,
repercussion on the other end.
the most bizarre thing to happen recently is that the federal judge who was hearing the case had recused himself, and the DeSantis administration had asked that he recuse himself earlier for more legitimate reasons. I don't remember what they were, but what the judge ended up saying was, well, I have a relative with shares in Disney, so that could be a conflict of interest. Turned out it was like a third cousin with $3,000 in Disney stock. It was patently absurd and obvious he just wanted to get the heck out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the most recent thing of why it popped up back in the news. It was people going, well, that's weird.
Yeah, I'm not hating on DeSantis, by the way. I'm just, this is my evaluation of him thus
Mm,
far, is that he does a lot of posturing. And he did some good things in that time, especially around the COVID era, and Florida's thriving because of that. But at the same time, I think a lot of the criticisms that are thrown at other people, that because they love DeSantis, I'm like, he's kind of the same. He's testing the wind. He's saying things that he knows people are going to like to hear. And realistically, some of these things, not a whole. You talked about the scratching of the back of
mhm.
the Disney is so powerful that he may not want that fight. He may want to do the monkey dance of thrusting your chest out and saying, you want to bring it, you want to bring it, while the bouncer jumps in the middle. But nothing happened. We got a couple news stories. Ooh, DeSantis bad. He's a transphobe. Okay, and then it was over. Meanwhile, in Texas, this guy that you say never does anything, we got some good
Yeah.
stuff brewing.
Yeah, I got a text about that fundraising kind of thing, and I was like, wait, what? Really? Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it. We'll see how it goes.
In the speech, not only does he want to cut it, he wants to ultimately end property taxes, which those of
As
us
they
that
should.
own property in Texas know that the local counties are trying to really ramp up your value, and you have to go fight that every year, or else it's if you don't fight it one year, it's locked at whatever you didn't fight. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, that would certainly change my mind on him if he actually pushed that through,
Mm-hmm.
because that would be a big something.
Yeah. So,
All right, well, that's all I got, and I'm roasting here because it's 5:30 and the sun is right there, and I'm on the hottest side of the house. So,
all right. Well, no medical advice this time. No tax advice, even though we talked about taxes. Please do the right thing and pay whatever you owe, and don't do any shenanigans. But vote for the people who make it less. There we go.
damn straight. All right,
All right.
see y'all next time.
Later.